Da-eun, a sweet and romantic high school student, is moving to a new school. Deep down, she is dreaming of a great and all-consuming love, believing that somewhere in the world, she will meet the person who will change her life. A new class is a chance for her to start from scratch and perhaps find her destiny. In her dreams, a kind and attentive man who will become her support and give her true happiness. However, reality soon begins to make its corrections. On her first day at her new school, Da-eun meets Kim Seung Hyu, a classmate who immediately catches her eye. Seung Hyu is different from the others. His frown, cold gaze, and demeanor make her not only curious but also inwardly awestruck. She is immediately struck by his unusual and mysterious aura. Though Seung Hyu's behavior is completely repulsive, he seems withdrawn, aloof, and unwilling to talk to anyone. Not knowing him at all, Da-eun feels an overwhelming desire to learn more about Seung Hyu. She's attracted to his reticence, which beckons and makes her want to understand what's behind his frown and coldness. It seems to her that he's hiding something important inside, and it makes her watch him closely, finding moments when she can get at least a glimpse of how he lives his life. During recess, she accidentally runs into him in the hallways, trying to get a closer look at him and see what kind of person he is. However, Seung Hyu's behavior is rude and unfriendly, and he tries to avoid all contact, which only fuels Da-eun's interest. It seems to her that his behavior is just a protective barrier, hiding mental wounds that no one knows about. She senses that he's avoiding others because something is hurting him deeply. Da-eun intuitively picks up on the fact that he is lonely, and she is touched by it. Gradually, her interest becomes apparent to the other classmates. Some of them warn Da-eun to stay away from Seung Hyu. In their opinion, he's a troubled person who it's best to stay away from. She hears from them that Seung Hyu is in trouble, and his behavior could prove dangerous to those around him. Da-eun decides to ignore these warnings, however, as she is drawn to him more and more despite the dark rumors. One day, Da-eun accidentally witnesses a situation where Seung Hyu runs into some high school kids. They begin to taunt and provoke him. She sees him holding on without showing any reaction to their bullying, but she realizes from his clenched fists how hard it is for him. It's as if he's ready to explode at any moment, but he keeps his cool. Da-eun is impressed by his resilience and restraint, and it only makes her like him more. At recess, Da-eun crosses paths with Seung Hyu again and decides to make the first move, trying to strike up a conversation. But he answers her coldly, as if her presence annoys him. She doesn't give up, though, and finds more and more reasons to be around him every day, trying to figure out what's behind his stern gaze and aloofness. After a while, Da-eun starts to notice strange things, bruises and scratches on Seung Hyu's arms, which he tries to hide. She's worried because he's trying not to draw attention to himself, but now it's clear to her that he's hiding something. One day, when they meet by chance in the schoolyard, she notices another fresh bruise on his arm and asks him about it. He answers, expectedly, in a rude and curt manner. But Da-eun notices something in his eyes that hints at an underlying pain. Her concern grows and she decides not to back down. She senses that Seung Hyu is not as simple as he seems, and that his aloofness hides a difficult experience that he prefers to hide from the world. She sees how hard his life is, and her heart tells her that he needs help, even if he's not ready to admit it. The more she learns about his behavior, the more she believes that their meeting is her chance to support him, perhaps even change his life for the better. Da-eun decides to keep trying to connect, despite all the difficulties and resistance from Seung Hyu. She feels that her feelings for him are growing stronger, and although it's an unconscious attachment for now, she feels like she's willing to fight for that connection no matter what. She no longer listens to rumors and warnings, focusing only on her feelings and her intuition, which tells her that Seung Hyu is the right person to overcome all obstacles for. Despite Seung Hyu's coldness and resistance to contact, Da-eun stays close to him, determined to understand his true feelings and the reason for his reticence. Her inner voice tells her that he needs attention and support, and that his outward aloofness hides a deep pain. At some point, she realizes that his loneliness and hidden wounds make her not only feel pity for him, but also want to become a close person for him, able to share his burdens. The next day at school, she tries to strike up a conversation with Seung Hyu again, but he remains withdrawn and pushes her away. Da-eun notices that his surroundings are trying to keep their distance from him. The students are wary of him, and the older students make mocking comments about him. However, she is not intimidated by his image as a troubled man, and she decides to find out more about him. When she talks to her classmates, she learns that Seung Hyu transferred from another school where he was allegedly involved in fights and conflicts. No one knows if it's true or not, but now it's clear why he avoids people and acts so aloof. Her interest in Seung Hyu only grows. Da-eun begins to notice that he's not just secretive, but often immerses himself in himself, as if in an attempt to drown out some memories. She senses that he lives in a constant state of stress, and that every day is a struggle for a peace of mind he doesn't have. She is drawn to him more and more, because she sees him not just as a classmate, but as someone who needs support. Inside, she has a maturing confidence that she can be the one to change his life. One day when Da-eun sees Seung Hyu sitting alone after class, she decides to approach him and offer her friendship. He looks at her warily, not understanding why she wants to socialize with him. He notices something new in her eyes, sincerity, interest, and even gentleness that were unfamiliar to him. His own feelings are overwhelmed with distrust, and he immediately tries to shield himself by responding to her harshly and repulsively. But Da-eun sees that his rudeness is just a way to distance himself from others, to keep anyone who might hurt from coming into his life. She realizes that he needs time to get used to her and decides not to give up. Gradually, their interactions begin to change him. Although he still keeps aloof, Seung Hyu begins to see Da-eun as someone who can understand him without judging him. Her genuine attention and kindness touches him, and without realizing it, he begins to grow accustomed to her presence. She sees that he is beginning to trust her, albeit slowly, but it is the first step. Now she notices that he sometimes casts curious glances at her, as if studying her, trying to understand her motives. One evening, Da-eun meets Seung Hyu by chance on the street and notices that he is walking home with a depressed look. She decides to follow him without interfering, but stay close by to see what state he's in when he returns home. She sees him walk into an old building and notices that his mood changes dramatically. Da-eun begins to guess that home, which should be a place of safety and warmth, represents a source of stress and pain for him. In the days that follow, she tries to approach the conversation more cautiously, knowing that his life is not as simple as it may seem from the outside. Her insight and patience help Seung Hyu begin to feel calmer in her company. She decides to take a gentler approach, not rushing him or insisting on candor. This slow but steady rapprochement helps Seung Hyu feel that Da-eun is around for a reason, and that she can truly be trusted. There comes a moment when Da-eun notices more bruises and cuts on him. She realizes that these marks aren't the result of accidental falls or fights, but something more serious. She tries to talk to him about it, but as usual she runs into a wall of silence and coldness. Seung Hyu refuses to talk about it, but his eyes betray the desperation and hidden pain he's trying to hide. Da-eun realizes that this is his inner defense, and she needs to be even more patient. In the evening, she thinks long and hard about what to do. Her heart aches for Seung Hyu, and she feels obligated to help him, even if he doesn't ask for it. Da-eun decides that she will be there for him as much as she can, and try to make him feel safe, even if he doesn't realize it. She feels her affection for Seung Hyu grow stronger, and now she's willing to overcome any obstacles to see him happy and free from pain. The next day, Da-eun brings him a small gift, a bracelet that she says will symbolize support and protection. Seung Hyu is surprised and embarrassed by her attention, but he accepts the gift, trying not to show his emotions. It's the first time he feels that someone genuinely cares about him, and it makes him feel a mixture of gratitude and confusion. He's not used to kindness and warmth, and it's hard for him to accept such feelings. Soon Da-eun starts to notice him becoming more open around her, even if it's only in small things. His gaze becomes softer, he no longer avoids her completely. Da-eun sees this as a small but important victory. She realizes that her patience and care are beginning to pay off, and it only makes her want to be near him more. Now their encounters take on more than just casual crossings at school. Seung Hyu begins to share her thoughts with Da-eun, albeit in the most humble, short phrases. She feels that a strong but still fragile bond is being established between them. Her support is slowly becoming something he's used to, and he can no longer deny that her presence in his life is comforting. Da-eun and Seung Hyu's relationship grows closer despite his attempts to stay away from her. Now that she meets him every day, helping and supporting him, he can't deny that her presence has become important to him. She's become the support he's been missing and helps him find some peace of mind in a life full of stress and pain. Although Seung Hyu is still not ready to fully open up, he gradually allows Da-eun to be close to him, even if only from a distance. At school, some classmates begin to notice how Da-eun cares for Seung Hyu, and it causes them to question him. Since Seung Hyu has always been considered an outcast, their attention to him causes gossip and ridicule. However, Da-eun doesn't pay attention to this. All that matters to her is his condition and what she sees behind his coldness. She feels that Seung Hyu needs her, even if he doesn't admit it, and that her support is the only thing keeping him afloat. Gradually, Da-eun begins to learn more about his life outside of school. Her heart breaks when she learns that Seung Hyu suffers from domestic violence, but he chooses to keep quiet about it, not telling anyone. He's developed the ability to hide his trauma and pain behind a mask of aloofness, but Da-eun notices every little detail that gives away his suffering. She realizes that his reticence isn't just a character trait, but a way of shielding himself from a world that brings him only pain and humiliation. One day after school, Da-eun decides to approach him and have a frank conversation, not afraid to show her excitement for him. She tells him that she cares about what's happening to him, and that she's willing to help him despite his resistance. Seung Hyu, who is used to hiding his feelings, pushes her away at first, saying that he doesn't need anyone's help. However, his words sound unsure, and Da-eun realizes that this hides his fear of getting closer. She decides to stay close despite his rudeness. Their conversation ends with Da-eun promising not to leave his life and to support him, even if he isn't ready for it. She can see that her determination touches Seung Hyu, even though he tries to hide it. To him, her promise is something new, for he's never encountered a sincere desire to help from another person. He begins to realize that her concern is not a temporary infatuation, and that Da-eun is truly willing to fight for him. The next day, Da-eun decides to give him a book she picked out especially for him, knowing that reading it might distract him from his gloomy thoughts. Seung Hyu refuses at first, thinking her gesture useless, but then agrees to accept the gift. She sees his gaze soften, and realizes that this small token of caring has become important to him. Her book turns out to be not just a gift to him, but a symbol of her constant presence in his life. A reminder that she is there for him, even if he doesn't always show it. Gradually, Seung Hyu begins to open up to her, sharing his thoughts and fears, though he does so with caution and restraint. His caution is understandable. This is his first experience of a trusting relationship, and it's hard for him to believe that someone could stay with him, despite all the difficulties. Da-eun listens to him with understanding and supports him whenever he dares to tell her about his past. Her support helps Seung Hyu begin to realize that not everything in his life has to be about pain, that there are bright sides to the world, and that Da-eun is just the bright side he's been missing. At some point, Seung Hyu begins to realize that his feelings for Da-eun have changed. He no longer sees her as just a friend. Her kindness and warmth have touched his heart, and he begins to feel something more for her. But his fear of losing her because of his own problems and past hardships keeps him from opening up fully. He's afraid that his own shadows might hurt her, and that keeps him from fully admitting his feelings. Da-eun notices a change in his demeanor. He's becoming softer, his coldness is fading, and the tenderness he's been hiding for so long is showing in his gaze. She realizes that he has feelings for her, but because of his pain and insecurity, she is afraid to make the first move. Da-eun decides to give him time to make up his own mind to confess and continues to be there for him, supporting him every step of the way on his journey to trust and acceptance. Da-eun and Seung Hyu's relationship grows deeper with each passing day, and their bond is no longer just friendship, it's filled with genuine care and support. Da-eun becomes the only person Seung Hyu can talk to about his fears and doubts. Her warmth and sincerity help him find solace in a world where he's used to seeing only coldness and alienation. Now he begins to trust her, and even looks forward to their meetings, realizing that she has truly become important to him. However, Seung Hyu still tries to hide what is happening at his home from her. Every night he returns to a place that has become a symbol of fear and pain for him. The bruises on his body and injuries are the result of years of abuse that he has come to terms with, but never found a way to cope. He has a hard time accepting that Da-eun is willing to share this pain with him, and he continues to remain silent, afraid that the truth will push her away. One night, Da-eun decides to do something special for Seung Hyu. She invites him to meet her in the park after school, and though he hesitates at first, he agrees. She has prepared a small picnic for him, hoping that this gesture will help him relax a little and feel needed. Seung Hyu is surprised at first and then agrees to join her, amazed by her care and warmth. The time they spend together becomes a real moment of relaxation for him, when he can forget about his problems. During the picnic, Da-eun notices a few more fresh bruises on his arms and tries to talk about it again. This time, Seung Hyu doesn't immediately pull away. He remains silent, stares off into the distance for a long moment, and then admits that his family hurts him. Da-eun listens to him with pain in his heart, not interrupting and giving him a chance to express everything he's feeling. It's not easy for him to talk about it, but her sincere involvement helps him finally open up. He tells her that since childhood he has lived in an atmosphere of fear and violence which has made him so withdrawn and aloof. He learned to hide his feelings so that no one would know how much he was hurting. Da-eun listens to him, holding back tears, and realizes that his behavior is the result of years of suffering that he hides from others. Her heart breaks at the realization of how much pain he's felt alone, and she decides she won't let him be alone anymore. After their conversation, Da-eun feels that her affection for Seung Hyu has turned into something more. She doesn't just want to be his friend, Her goal now is to become a source of support for him, someone who will always be there for him. She realizes it's not an easy path, but her love gives her strength. Now she's willing to fight for him, even if he himself finds it hard to believe that anyone could genuinely care for him. A few days later, Da-eun decides to talk to Seung Hyu again, this time offering him help. She asks him to see the school counselor or confide in an adult, but Seung Hyu refuses. He's afraid that if the truth comes out, his family will suffer even more and he'll be left alone, unsupported. Da-eun understands his fears, but still tries to convince him that he needs to find a way to deal with the situation. She promises to be there for him and support him no matter what. Da-eun's words begin to penetrate his soul, and Seung Hyu thinks for the first time that maybe there is a way to live differently. Her love and determination give him the hope he lost long ago. He's not sure he can change his life, but now he knows he has someone who believes in him and is willing to fight for him, even if he himself doesn't see a way out. Soon their relationship begins to attract the attention of other students. Classmates notice that Da-eun and Seung Hyu are spending more and more time together, and it makes some of them unhappy. The guys in the upper grades start making fun of them, thinking that Da-eun is wasting her time. Da-eun, used to these rumors, ignores them, but Seung Hyu begins to feel guilty. He fears that his problems might hurt her, and tries to distance himself again so as not to put her under unnecessary pressure. Despite this, Da-eun stays by his side, showing that only he matters to her, not the opinions of others. This strengthens their bond and makes Seung Hyu realize that she's really willing to be with him, despite the difficulties. Gradually, he begins to accept her concern and trust her more and more, though doubts and fear still linger in his heart. One night, Da-eun decides to talk to her parents to explain her feelings for Seung Hyu. She hopes they will understand and support her, but the reaction is quite different. Her parents think that her choice is unsafe, that Seung Hyu is a complicated and troubled person, and that she should find a more suitable friend. Da-eun takes their words hard, but she stays true to her decision to be with Seung Hyu. This conversation makes her think about how strong her feelings are. She realizes that she's willing to fight for her relationship, even if it requires confronting her family. Da-eun begins to realize that her love for Seung Hyu is not just a youthful crush, but something much more serious, and that she is willing to go through any hardship for his sake. After Da-eun's determination to stay by Seung Hyu's side despite all the hardships, their relationship becomes even stronger. Seung Hyu now feels the support he has been looking for, and begins to believe that with Da-eun by his side, he has a chance at a normal life. He opens up to her more and more, though it remains a difficult step for him. Da-eun, seeing his progress, is convinced every day that her choice was the right one, and is deeply happy that her support is beginning to pay off. However, because of her growing attachment to Seung Hyu, she increasingly faces her family's displeasure. Her parents can't understand why their daughter has chosen such a difficult path and begin to insist that she end her relationship with Seung Hyu. They believe that she deserves a more peaceful and happy life, and that her friendship with him will only bring pain and suffering. Da-eun feels pressured by her family, but doesn't give up her intentions. She begins to hide from her parents that she is seeing Seung Hyu more and more often, and this becomes a new source of tension for her. At school, Da-eun and Seung Hyu also face misunderstanding from their classmates. Now that their affection for each other has become obvious, various rumors swirl around them. Many don't believe that Da-eun is genuinely interested in such a complicated person, and suspect that she's only feeling sorry for him. But for Da-eun, this is far from true. Her feelings for Seung Hyu have become true love, and she is willing to fight for him, despite the judgment of others. Seung Hyu feels guilty that their relationship is attracting so much unnecessary attention and gossip, but Da-eun convinces him that she doesn't care what anyone thinks. One day, Seung Hyu decides to ask Da-eun out on a date to take her mind off her tense situation. It's an important step for him, because he wants to show that he can care for her the way she cares for him. They go to an amusement park, and it becomes a truly happy and carefree day for them. Seung Hyu laughs and enjoys the moment for the first time in a long time, forgetting her troubles. Da-eun sees how he can be when nothing is weighing him down, and it strengthens her desire to help him break free of his past. During their date, Seung Hyu makes a revelation. He tells Da-eun about his childhood and how he lived in an atmosphere of violence and suppression for a long time. He explains that his family was a source of pain for him, but he never had the courage to leave and break the cycle. Da-eun squeezes his hand and promises that he won't have to go through this alone again. She tells him that he's worthy of happiness and love, and that together they can deal with his past. For Seung Hyu, these words become a support he's never felt before, and he decides to try to change his life for her. After this date, Da-eun and Seung Hyu spend even more time together, discussing their future and making plans that seem more realistic now. Seung Hyu realizes that with Da-eun, he has a chance at a normal life, and begins to think about leaving home and starting an independent life. He doesn't want to be dependent on his parents anymore, and now he has a goal to build a future where he himself can be happy and give happiness to Da-eun. However, the situation becomes more complicated when Da-eun faces open resistance from her parents. They are adamantly opposed to her relationship with Seung Hyu and begin to insist that she stop dating him. They believe that he is incapable of bringing her happiness, and that her attachment to him is only a temporary delusion. Da-eun, however, is convinced of the opposite and decides to resist her parents' wishes, stating firmly that her feelings for Seung Hyu are not just pity, but true love. This conflict with her family puts her to the test, but she stays true to her feelings and her promise to Seung Hyu. They decide that they will support each other despite all the difficulties, and that together they will be able to overcome any obstacles. Da-eun realizes that her love for Seung Hyu gives her the strength to fight not only for him, but also for her right to happiness. Meanwhile, Seung Hyu begins to take steps toward independence. He decides to look for a job so that he can save money and move out of his parents' house. Da-eun supports him in this decision, and helps him look for opportunities. She sees his desire to change his life grow stronger, which inspires her even more. Together they make plans and dream of a future where they won't have to hide and hide. When Seung Hyu takes a part-time job, it becomes a real breakthrough for him. He feels for the first time that he can control his life and that his efforts matter. Although the job is challenging and he faces difficulties, he doesn't give up, because he knows he has Da-eun's support. They celebrate his early successes together, and Da-eun sees him gradually gaining confidence. But their happiness is jeopardized again when Da-eun's parents decide to intervene. When they learn that she continues to date Seung Hyu and support him, they give her an ultimatum: either she ends the relationship or she loses the support of her family. Da-eun is faced with a difficult choice, but her love for Seung Hyu is stronger, and she decides to go against her parents' wishes, knowing that she is willing to sacrifice a lot for Seung Hyu. This situation causes Seung Hyu to feel guilty. He realizes that his problems are causing difficulties in Da-eun's life. He fears that she will lose everything she has because of him, and that her sacrifices may be too great. He suggests that she break up to avoid causing her more pain, but Da-eun refuses. She assures him that her love for him is not a temporary infatuation, and that she's willing to fight for their future together. Despite all the difficulties, Da-eun and Seung Hyu continue to build their relationship, overcoming one challenge after another. Now that Seung Hyu is working and gaining independence, his self-confidence begins to grow. He no longer sees himself as a defenseless man dependent on his family's cruelty. With each passing day, Seung Hyu gains the strength to fight for his future, and it gives him an inspiration he never felt before. Da-eun remains a source of support and inspiration for him, and he becomes more and more convinced that with her help he can face his fears and build a life anew. However, Da-eun's family's resistance does not abate. Her parents still believe that her relationship with Seung Hyu is a mistake that will only bring her pain and disappointment. They see his past as an indelible stain, and can't understand that Da-eun is making her choices consciously, and that her feelings for Seung Hyu are real. More and more resentment on their part causes Da-eun to begin to feel internally conflicted. It's hard for her to constantly be between her family and the person she loves. She realizes that her parents' support is important to her, but she's not ready to cut her ties with Seung Hyu. One night, after a tense conversation with her parents, Da-eun decides to tell Seung Hyu about all the things she has to listen to and worry about in their relationship. He listens to her intently, and although guilt grows inside him, he realizes that he has to be there for her and support her. Seung Hyu offers to temporarily cut back on her meetings if need be, to ease her situation in front of her family. But Da-eun firmly refuses, saying that it's important to her to be with him despite the pressure from outside. She's convinced that true love can overcome all obstacles, and is willing to make any sacrifice for their happiness. Seung Hyu, touched by her determination, promises to do his best to justify her trust. His work now becomes not just a source of income, but a symbol of his inner strength. He begins to save money, planning to rent his own place in the future, so that he will no longer be dependent on his family. With each passing day, he feels that his life is gaining meaning and direction, and this strengthens his self-confidence. Meanwhile, the talk about Da-eun and Seung Hyu continues at school as well. Classmates continue to discuss their relationship, and it becomes a cause for more attacks and ridicule. But Da-eun and Seung Hyu find comfort in each other. Now that they spend time together, they feel that all external difficulties pale before their affection and support. They realize that no one can change their decision to be together, and it gives them a confidence they didn't have before. One day, Seung Hyu decides to arrange a little surprise for Da-eun to distract her from all her negative thoughts. He prepares a romantic dinner for her on the roof of the building where he works. Da-eun arrives there and sees that Seung Hyu has decorated everything with flowers and candles, trying to create an atmosphere where they can forget about all their worries. They spend the evening together, savoring the moment when they can just be happy without thinking about problems. The evening goes perfectly, and Da-eun feels their bond grow even deeper. Seung Hyu confesses his true feelings to her for the first time, telling her that she's not just a girl to him, but the meaning of his life, someone he's willing to change and become a better person for. He promises that he will protect their relationship despite all obstacles, and that he will do anything for her happiness. Da-eun is touched by his words and realizes that she made the right choice to fight for their love. But the joy of their happy moments doesn't last long. The next day, Da-eun faces a new challenge when her parents again give her an ultimatum. They demand that she end her relationship with Seung Hyu or she will be forced to leave home. This is a serious test for Da-eun. Now she must make a final decision, to choose between her family and the man she loves. Her heart breaks with pain, but she realizes that her feelings for Seung Hyu are too strong for her to give up on him. When Da-eun shares this news with Seung Hyu, he's shocked and concerned that she might lose her family because of him. He offers to break up to spare her this pain, but Da-eun resolutely refuses. She's sure she can find a way to deal with the situation and convince her parents to accept her choice. Seung Hyu realizes that Da-eun isn't going to back down, and this strengthens his own resolve. In an effort to support her, Seung Hyu decides that he has to become a real support and protector for her. He starts looking for a more permanent job so that he can provide not only for himself, but also for Da-eun if she decides to leave home. Seung Hyu realizes that their love will require him to make many sacrifices, but he's willing to make them if it will bring them both happiness. Despite pressure from all sides, Da-eun and Seung Hyu stay together, finding in their relationship a source of strength and inspiration. They realize that all the hardships they go through make their bond even stronger. Now the most important thing for them is to stay strong and not let anyone destroy what they've built. Da-eun is ready to stand up to her parents and fight for her happiness, and Seung Hyu is ready to be the protection for her that she has always given him. Despite all the difficulties, Da-eun and Seung Hyu continue to cling to each other, facing obstacles that only strengthen their relationship. However, the pressure from Da-eun's parents doesn't let up, and they still can't accept her choice. Her family now insists that her future should not depend on a troubled young man, whose life they believe will only lead her to disappointment. But Da-eun remains firm in her decision. She's convinced that no one can force her to give up Seung Hyu, and she's ready to defend her feelings in front of the whole family. In response to this pressure, Da-eun decides to tell Seung Hyu everything she's going through. She candidly shares her feelings with him, explaining that despite her parents' ultimatums and threats, she's not going to give up. Seung Hyu, though deeply touched by her support, begins to feel guilty that his problems have caused the rift between Da-eun and her family. He suggests that she end their relationship temporarily to give her time and space to reconnect with her parents, but Da-eun firmly refuses. She assures him that she is ready to go all the way, and that her love for him is not just stubbornness, but real, sincere feelings that she will not allow to be destroyed. Realizing the sacrifice Da-eun is willing to make for him, Seung Hyu decides that he must do everything he can to change his life and justify her trust. He starts working 2 jobs, trying to save up money to rent a place where the two of them can be together, away from judgment and problems. Da-eun supports him in this decision and sees his determination grow stronger every day. Her heart fills with pride for Seung Hyu, who, despite a difficult past, finds the strength to fight for their shared future. Soon Seung Hyu gets a more stable job, and this gives him a new impetus. He no longer feels weak and helpless. Instead, he sees a goal in front of him and is willing to work for it. He starts to plan for the future, and together with Da-eun they discuss how they will live when they can afford their own place. They dream of a quiet life where they no longer have to hide and make excuses, and these dreams become a source of inspiration for them. However, societal pressures continue to mount. At school, classmates continue to discuss their relationship, and this again leads to conflicts. Some students mock Seung Hyu and believe that he does not deserve Da-eun. These words hurt him, and though he tries not to show his feelings, Da-eun notices that these taunts leave a mark. She comforts him, telling him that their love is stronger than any words, and that together they can handle any hardship. Seung Hyu, inspired by her encouragement, decides not to pay attention to the negativity of others anymore. Amidst these events, Da-eun faces a new challenge. Her parents, seeing that their entreaties and ultimatums are failing, decide to resort to the last resort. They threaten to withdraw their financial support from her, if she doesn't end her relationship with Seung Hyu. For Da-eun, this becomes a serious challenge. She must now choose between her family and her love. She realizes that if she accepts their terms, she'll lose Seung Hyu. But if she refuses, she'll have to rely on herself and start her own life. After much deliberation, Da-eun makes a difficult decision. She chooses Seung Hyu and decides not to give in to family pressure anymore. She is now fully committed to their relationship, realizing that her happiness around him is more important than anything else. This step is a turning point for her, as she is no longer dependent on her parents' opinions and is ready to follow her own path. When Seung Hyu learns of her decision, he realizes how important their bond is to her. He is touched by her sacrifice and feels immense gratitude and love for her. This becomes another motivation for him to change his life. He now sees himself not only as a man who is fighting for his own future, but also as a man who is responsible for Da-eun. His love for her becomes a source of strength, and he decides not to stop until he has provided them both with a life worth living. There is a new sense of confidence in their relationship. They no longer fear the judgment of others and begin to build their future together. Seung Hyu now dreams of the day when they can be together without all these problems, when they can live peacefully without looking back at public opinion. They discuss their plans, make dreams, and every moment they spend together fills their lives with meaning. However, despite all these successes, Da-eun continues to feel pressured by society. Her life outside of school becomes increasingly isolated as she decides to distance herself from those who do not support her choices. Some friends stop talking to her, believing that she is making a mistake, and Da-eun remains surrounded only by those who truly believe in her choices. This makes her life more complicated, but she stays true to her decision to be with Seung Hyu. It's been a few weeks since Da-eun finally made the decision to stay with Seung Hyu, despite all the hardships and judgment from her parents and friends. Now their relationship has grown stronger and both feel like they can rely on each other like never before. Seung Hyu continues to work hard to save up for their place together, and Da-eun helps him by supporting him in everything and making their journey less lonely. For both of them, the future now seems clear, and they believe they will soon be able to live the life they dreamed of. However, the tension at school does not disappear. Classmates continue to discuss their relationship, and some of them don't miss an opportunity to make fun of Da-eun and mock Seung Hyu. This creates an atmosphere of discomfort, but Da-eun has learned to ignore such remarks, knowing that there is someone waiting for her outside of school who is worth overcoming these difficulties for. Seung Hyu, though he tries to be strong, sometimes feels overwhelmed under the oppression of constant attention and judgment. He is hurt by hints that he is supposedly dragging Da-eun into a difficult life, and despite his efforts, he still fears that he won't be able to live up to her expectations. One day at school, an unpleasant incident occurs. Several high school students who have long teased Seung Hyu confront him in the hallway and begin provoking him into a fight. They call him derogatory names, alluding to his past, and telling everyone around him about how he supposedly uses Da-eun to make himself feel needed. It hits a nerve with him, and Seung Hyu can barely contain himself from giving in to the provocation. But when they start mentioning Da-eun, his patience breaks and he gets into a confrontation, trying to defend her honor. The scene escalates into a small fight in which Seung Hyu finds himself alone against several high school students. He ends up taking several blows, but he doesn't give up, defending his and her name. Da-eun, seeing this, rushes over to him and tries to break up the fight. Teachers intervene and the conflict quickly ends, but the consequences are serious. Seung Hyu is called to the principal's office, and the administration decides to raise the issue of his behavior with his parents. When Da-eun's parents find out what happened, it's the last straw. They rebuke her for losing her reputation and the respect of others because of Seung Hyu. Da-eun is forced to stand up for Seung Hyu again, explaining that he was only protecting her and that this situation shows his loyalty and desire to be a support for her. However, her parents are adamant and demand that she cut all ties with him immediately, believing him to be dangerous and harmful to her future. After a difficult conversation with her family, Da-eun returns to Seung Hyu in tears. She tells him that her parents have finally turned their backs on her choice, and that she is now effectively forced to fight for their relationship alone. Seung Hyu feels deeply guilty that she's going through such anguish because of him, and suggests that she break up to protect her from further problems. But Da-eun flatly refuses, explaining that her choice remains unchanged, and that for his sake she is willing to stand up not only to her parents, but to everyone who opposes their relationship. Touched by her determination, Seung Hyu decides that he must do everything he can to change his situation. He begins to think seriously about the future, realizing that his only chance to be with Da-eun is to prove to everyone that he can provide her with a decent life. Now his job becomes not only a way for him to earn money, but also a symbol of his desire to be the best for her. After a while, he manages to save enough money to rent a small apartment. This event becomes a milestone in his life. Now he is no longer dependent on his family and can offer Da-eun a place where they can be together. Seung Hyu invites her to see the apartment, and Da-eun arrives, filled with emotion. They tour the room together, which, though modest, becomes a symbol of their combined efforts and desire to be together. For Da-eun, this event confirms her choice. She sees that Seung Hyu is willing to do a lot for their future, and that his efforts are not just words but real actions. They begin planning how to set up the place, discussing their dreams and desires. They decide that this little corner will become their common space where they can be themselves without looking back at other people's prejudice and judgment. However, the joy of finding an apartment is overshadowed by new difficulties. Seung Hyu soon begins to face financial difficulties due to rent and household expenses. He realizes that despite his eagerness, he will need to work even harder to provide Da-eun with a comfortable life. Da-eun, seeing his efforts, offers to help financially, but Seung Hyu refuses, believing that he must manage on his own. It is important for him to prove to himself and her that he is capable of being an independent and worthy partner. After all the trials they have endured, Da-eun and Seung Hyu finally begin to feel that their efforts were not in vain. They now have a place of their own, their cozy little world where they can be together without looking back at the judgment and prejudice of others. This corner becomes a symbol for them of the new life they are building away from everyone who doubted their choices. But along with this realization comes the realization that their relationship is no longer just a high school romance. It's a serious adult bond for which they are responsible. Life in their new apartment brings them both joys and new challenges. Seung Hyu continues to work, diligently saving money to provide them with a stable future. Da-eun, not wanting to be a mere observer, also does his part. They decide to share household chores and work together to make their lives as sustainable as possible. Their relationship becomes more mature. They now realize that true love is not only romance but also daily work, support, and care. However, fears and insecurities are still present in their lives. Seung Hyu still feels pressured, afraid of not living up to Da-eun's expectations and putting her at risk because of his difficult life. He realizes that if he can't give her everything she deserves, their happiness might crumble. These thoughts sometimes lead him to doubt, but every time he sees her smile and sincere support, his confidence grows. He realizes that it's more important for Da-eun to be close to him than material comforts or public opinion. One evening when they spend time together, Da-eun offers to discuss their plans for the future. She dreams of an education, wants to build a career, and hopes that someday they can have a big, strong family. Seung Hyu is touched by her optimism and sees her words as encouragement to strive for the best. He promises that he'll be with her every step of the way, supporting her ambitions and helping her realize her dreams. Da-eun thanks him for this, and her eyes light up with determination to follow through. However, they soon encounter new difficulties with their financial situation. Despite their best efforts, money is sometimes tight, and Da-eun feels guilty that Seung Hyu works so hard to support them. She suggests that he cut back on his work hours a little so he won't be as tired, but he refuses, believing it's his responsibility to make sure they can both feel secure. He's convinced that these efforts will pay off in the future, and his persistence gives Da-eun confidence that they'll make it through. Amidst these difficulties, Da-eun receives an unexpected letter from her parents. They learn that she is still dating Seung Hyu and express their disappointment and anger. However, the letter also contains something new. Her parents suggest that she return home and forget everything that ties her to Seung Hyu. In return, they promise to support her education and the future she has always dreamed of. Da-eun is faced with a difficult choice. She can return to a life of support and financial stability, or she can stay with Seung Hyu and build a future with him from scratch, without anyone's help. She ponders her parents' proposal long and hard, trying to weigh every aspect of her life. She sees an image of a future where everything is safe and predictable, but where Seung Hyu is not around. Her heart sinks at the thought of losing the man who has become the meaning of her life. Gradually, she realizes that her love for Seung Hyu is not just a romantic infatuation, but something much deeper, tender, and serious. Instead of fearing for an unstable future with him, she feels confident that together they can handle any difficulties. Finally, after much deliberation, Da-eun decides to stay with Seung Hyu despite the risk and disappointment of her parents. When Da-eun informs Seung Hyu of his decision, he sees a determination in her eyes that he hadn't noticed before. Her words touch him to the core, and he realizes the great sacrifice she is making for their love. Although he is inwardly fearful of the future, he feels Da-eun's incredible support and faith, which gives him the strength to fight for their happiness together. He promises himself that he will do everything he can to justify her trust and care, and he begins to see her not just as a lover, but as a true partner with whom he is ready to build his life. In the final days before graduation, Da-eun and Seung Hyu begin to plan their future with new details. They decide to find ways for financial stability and independence together to prove to everyone that their connection is not just a youthful dream, but a mature and serious relationship that can overcome any challenges. Together they discuss the next steps from career to where to live, and realize that they have a long way to go. But their faith in each other only grows stronger. Now they know that there is not only happiness ahead of them, but also difficulties that they are ready to cope with together.